Hello and welcome to the webinar. We appreciate you taking time out of your day and want to honor that. So let's get started. I am Joe Powell, the president of Kissinger Associates. I have the pleasure of being joined by Linda Pinion, a principal solution consultant with Sage. Kissinger and Sage have been partners for decades, and I appreciate Linda being able to be here and present today. So I'd like to talk a little bit about Kissinger before turning the presentation over to Linda. We have been solving ERP and integration challenges for 39 years and have served over 4,300 customers. We have solutions for the following industries: construction, distribution, general financial management, manufacturing, retail and e-commerce, and services. The solutions that we provide, implement, and support are Sage Intacct, which we'll be seeing today, Sage 100, and Acumatica. Each of these solutions are able to scale with your business. Our consultants are not just software experts, they have real-world experience and can understand the unique challenges you face. What I like to point out is the quote that Anthony provided us. It really hits the point of how we work with you. He is a long-time customer of Kissinger and has partnered with us at his current and two previous employers. At Kissinger, we are looking for long-term relationships, not just a customer. So that's enough about Kissinger. Now I'd like to turn it over to Linda.
So thank you so much. I'm going to turn my camera on just so we can reintroduce ourselves here. First of all, thank you so much to Kissinger. This is a great opportunity for us to work together and to show you the depth of our relationship. And that's one of the things that I think is really important for you as a customer or as a prospect, is to know that you are partnering with the right organization. And again, this is an honor for me to be here today. I've been a long-time Sage Intactor, as we like to say. I've been here, it'll be 14 years in January. So I've seen the company and the product really grow and extend to meet lots of different verticals. And I was happy to see that Joseph was giving you the span of industries and verticals that they work in. And knowing that you may be a small business today and in growth mode, perhaps you started out with something like QuickBooks. And QuickBooks is a great product. No offense there to anything about QuickBooks. It's a great solution. It works quite well for small businesses. However, there are some things that will indicate to you and your team that we're kind of running into a brick wall here. We're not really able to do all that we need to do. Maybe we've outgrown QuickBooks, or maybe we just see that there's a direction that our company is taking, and QuickBooks is not going to be the best solution for that. So I would ask you to think about a few of these bullets as to has indicated to you that you might need to look at something else, or perhaps you've consulted with your CPA or your financial folks and they've just said, we're doing more and more of our day-to-day activities and perhaps our month-end reporting, we're doing that in Excel. We're not doing that in QuickBooks. We're taking that data, we're moving it out to Excel, and as we all know, Excel is a great tool. However, there's a good chance that that data has some mistakes in it because it's not always accurate. And also, it's only as good as when you first move it into Excel, because the data keeps changing and you're not changing and updating that Excel spreadsheet in sync with how the data is changing. A key indicator, doing things outside of QuickBooks. A second thing that might make sense for you to look at or think about is, are you able to see the information that you need to see easily. I say this because, true story, worked with a company that had QuickBooks, had 11 instances of QuickBooks, and hired a new controller. A new controller came in, immediately said, gosh, this is a lot of work to consolidate these 11 instances at the end of the month, or anytime I wanted to get that complete view. In fact, she quoted that it took her over 40 hours to get all of that done. So not having visibility causes many issues. Certainly, it causes the issue of reporting and consolidating. It also causes an issue because in order for you to make a business decision, maybe it's a decision about what to pay or when to pay an AP bill. Perhaps it's looking at overall information that you need for planning purposes. If you have to stop and coordinate all of that together manually in order to get visibility across the entire footprint of your organization, that's going to take some time. So that lack of visibility is key. One of the other things is just, being able to stay compliant with all the things that are changing in the world today, the controls and the compliance, having the proper audit trails, making sure you can go back and put your finger on that information is very important. And of course, just the ability to scale and to grow the business without having to change solutions every 2 or 3 years. I like to say, I want the solution to remain the solution. And that means that as you're growing, you're not going to need to re-implement or start over with a software evaluation because the system doesn't do what you need it to do. So if we think about some of those bulleted areas, let me introduce you to Sage Intacct. First of all, you may have heard or read or perhaps just know through the grapevine that Sage Intacct is a cloud-based solution. And the good news for you is it's always been a cloud solution. I like to say we were cloud before cloud was cool. And that's a big advantage, being able to only have one flavor, if you will, of product, meaning that everyone is utilizing the same version of the software. So Joseph doesn't have version 8.0 and Sherry has version 9.2 and I have version 10.6. There is a huge benefit to us, the publisher, and to you, the customer. Now we have one support team that's supporting the same version of software. We don't need to have different groups of people supporting different versions. We have consistency in what we're doing. We have the ability to all function with the same baseline of knowledge here. And besides all the advantages that we have with cloud, and we really saw this come to light during that season of the pandemic. And many of our customers reached back to us and said, oh my gosh, we are so thankful that we have a cloud-based solution because we couldn't go to the office like most people couldn't. We couldn't get to things in filing cabinets. So having a cloud-based solution is where most companies are moving to today. One of the other differentiators that you'll see and hear about today is our reporting. We think reporting is so important. We have a complete report center in Sage Intacct. What makes our reporting so powerful is our ability to do what we call multi-dimensional accounting and reporting. Now, that multi-dimensional, we're going to talk about dimensions in a few minutes when we get into product, but dimensions are really the secret to you having that granular reporting, and that's what you need. That's probably why, in many cases, you're pushing data out to Excel and changing it around, maybe even creating pivot tables, because you need that data in a granular format. We also have talked about visibility. We'll see that in product. We are a multi-everything solution. So one of those multis is multi-entity. An entity is the same thing as company. So you can have unlimited numbers of companies or entities managing in one instance of Sage Intacct. And that gives you the ability to do true multi-entity functionality. We're a best-in-class solution. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is we are architected to be an open architecture, which means, it's simple terms, that we can accept data from other best-in-class solutions. So when Joseph and team are talking to you about a solution, they're going to want to know, what other solutions are you using today? Perhaps you're using a CRM, a customer relationship management solution, maybe something like Salesforce or Microsoft CRM. They're going to want to know what you have and if you're going to keep it. So if it's working, it's not broke, you want to keep it, but you have information in those applications that you want to integrate back into Sage Intacct. That is exactly what we do. And we do it really, really well because of this open architecture. So that's what we mean when we say we can integrate into other solutions. We also are always focused on making sure that we are keeping up with the times. We want to be that best and brightest, if you will, when it comes to the user interface, when it comes to areas like online help and searching, making it as easy and comfortable for you, the user, to get into product, to be able to navigate and be able to get help while you're in product. So that modern interface you're going to see in just a few moments. And then I think one of the nicest compliments that I can make for the team, the developers, the folks in product management, is to say that many of our employees are accounting degreed people. Many of them are controllers in previous lives. They're CPAs. They're carrying that certification. And we've really designed this for that professional team in your office. We've designed it for CFOs. We like to say it's an accounting solution developed by accounting folks. I mentioned dimensions. Now, I know in QuickBooks you have a dimension. It's that dimension that you know and love as class. And class is certainly something that you might be using today, and you want to continue to use it when you move to Sage Intacct. The great news is we have class as one of our 12 predefined dimensions. However, we have 11 more that are predefined, and you have the ability to set up your own user-defined dimensions. These dimensions are used for two things. They're used, one, to get you that granular reporting, to be able to take data and filter it by customer, by vendor, by department. Those are all examples of dimensions. And the second reason that dimensions are important is because they allow you to create a modern chart of accounts. And that modern chart of accounts is a non-segmented structure of your chart. So today, if you're using QuickBooks, you're using a segmented chart. You have a base account number, and then you have some numbers that follow that are separated by a dash. So it could be 60340-001-100-1234. Each one of those segments means something. And you have that structure in your chart because that's the way that you want to report. In Sage Intacct, that segmented chart goes away. It's not that it's a bad thing. We've just found a more efficient way to do that. And we allow you to set up these dimensions. And then as you enter transactions, you'll enter that base account number, and then you'll tag that transaction to one or more of the dimensions. Then when you post the data, you have what we call dimensionalized data. And now we're back to using that dimensionalized data in order to create and execute those granular reports. So I've broken out on the right-hand side the different areas of dimensions. So when you look at the standard dimensions, those are ones that everyone has. And the great news about our dimensions is you can rename them. So if you want to call customer or client, you can do that. If you want to call vendor supplier, you can change it to supplier. And that change, that terminology change, is easy. You can do it, doesn't require any programming, and it will change vendor across the entire footprint of the product. Now, depending on what you are subscribed to, you may encounter some of the specialty dimensions that you see here. As an example, if you are a project-based company and you want to do reporting by project, then project is a dimension that you're going to want to access. And with the project accounting subscription, that project dimension becomes active. Same thing is true with warehouse. When we think about warehouse, we typically think about inventory. And inventory is a subscription. Some people need it, some people don't. If you need it, you subscribe to it. And when you subscribe, that warehouse dimension becomes active. There's some other dimensions here. One is user defined. So I said there were 12 predefined. However, you can define your own dimensions. We call them UDDs, user-defined dimensions, and those are literally unlimited. So you can create as many as you need to. I will tell you that most of our clients do not have user-defined dimensions because they find that they don't need them. There's a lot of functionality with the dimensions in their core product. And then some dimensions are dependent. So as an example, if you were in our construction vertical, you're a construction company, you want to use that work breakdown structure, WBS. If you think about that, that's really how you want to report. You want to estimate at the work breakdown structure level. You want to report that way. You want to see project profitability. That's a very detailed way of tracking that project. So task, cost code, cost type, those could come into play if you are a project-based company or a construction-based company. So when we get into product in a couple of minutes, you're going to see and hear more about dimensions. Just know that that's really what makes the difference when you get into reporting. And then before we jump into product, let me just tell you what the roadmap looks like. It's always helpful to know where you're going and how you're going to get there and in what order. So I thought about what would be probably the most important thing for you to see today, and I put that at the beginning, and that is visibility. So I like to start with the end at the beginning. So in visibility, we're going to look at role-based dashboards, and role-based dashboards are really your window into how your business is tracking. I'll cover a couple of different views for you. I'll show you some of the ones that I've set up. You can create as many of these as you want to. If you are a child of the 60s, you may remember the Etch-a-Sketch that we all had in the back seat when we went on family vacations. Well, this is kind of like the adult Etch-a-Sketch. This is going to let you create whatever information you need onto that dashboard and then be able to change it and view it. In addition to the role-based dashboards, we're going to have financial reporting, and we're going to see those dimensions in action. And then we'll also touch on consolidations. And consolidations is really going to allow us to see how we bring all that data together automatically. We like to refer to it as continuous accounting and continuous consolidation. So we'll see that on the dashboards as well. The second area is foundation. And foundation is really anytime you build something, you want to have that great, strong foundation at the lower level. Sherry, I think we've advanced or we've gone backwards in slides. If you could advance back to the roadmap, that would be great. There you go. Thank you so much. So in the foundation area, we want to make sure that whatever we build is going to have that strong lower level. So we're going to talk about some of the pieces that the Kissinger team would talk to you about in that first meeting, if you will. We're going to want to know, what does your company look like? Do you have multiple companies? Are you doing intercompany transactions? How are you doing that today? We'll talk more and see more about the dimensions. I want to show you that modern chart of accounts so you can see that it is just that lean and mean chart of accounts without those segments. I'm also going to introduce you to statistical accounts. And this is a way for you to get a different measurement, a different view of how the business is tracking. So think of statistical information as being more operational in nature as opposed to financial. And then I also want to assure you of the security and the permissioning that's running in the background. The last area that we'll cover is configurable business processes. And this is really more, in some ways, it's more tactical. However, it's the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. So it's daily activities, it's entering purchase orders, it's receiving, it's, setting those AP bills up for payment, or it's on the revenue side. It's entering those customer sales orders and processing them, fulfilling them, and then ultimately invoicing our customer and our customer giving us that cash receipt payment. So that order to cash process. Both of those processes are ones that folks can usually relate to. I know they can to procure to pay because everybody pays bills. In the middle of those two business processes is inventory. So there's three applications in procure to pay. It's purchasing, inventory, and AP. And the same is true of order to cash. It's accounts receivable, it's order entry, and it's inventory in the middle. We also will mention and show a little bit about AP automation. So where are we going as a company with artificial intelligence, and how are we weaving that into the product more and more every day, every release? You're going to see some of the background of what we're doing with AP automation. So you don't have to enter those AP bills. They can be sent to you automatically, and AI can kick in with machine learning and make sure that everything is valid and appropriate before it gets posted. Along the way in the procure to pay process, you're going to see some workflow approvals. We've set some up already as predefined, but you can go in and change those and adapt those to how you want to use them. And then a big thing for us, won't be a big thing for those of you who were using QuickBooks today, but having been here 14 years ago, we did not have the ability to connect to your bank. And this was a big deal to QuickBooks users because they wanted to make sure that when they made that move to a new solution, they weren't losing important functionality. So with our relationship with Sage Banking Cloud, we now have the ability, and have for some time, to connect to the banking cloud, which means that we have connection to your banks. Over 10,000 banks we have connections to today. And even if we don't have your bank on that list, we have a way to get that connection. So now you have that same functionality. We're also using AI in bank reconciliation. We've set up a great avenue for you to create matching rules and to match as much as possible when that data comes in, so that at the end of the month, you're not waiting for anything from the bank but a few transactions, and you can get that bank reconciliation closed quickly at the end of the month. And then, speaking of the end of the month, I want to take you back to dashboards at the end, and I want to show you a couple of things that could really impact the speed of you getting the month closed. And we'll do that through dashboarding and through checklist. All right, so Sherry, I'm going to ask you before I go into product, is there anything in the Q&A or in the chat that I should answer now about what I've already covered?
We do have one question that I'm not sure. Well, yeah, I think it would be a good thing to answer now. I believe
Okay.
what is being asked is if Sage Intacct can be configured and available on different PCs in different locations.
Yes, so here's the beauty of being a cloud-based solution. Let's just say hypothetical that today I'm sitting in Aiken, South Carolina. That's where I live. And let's say that my corporate office is right here in Aiken, and I have locations all over Georgia. So I have a location in Augusta, I have one in Atlanta, I have one in let's just say Sandy Springs. So I've got 3 different locations outside of Aiken, and I want all of my locations, including my corporate here, to be using Sage Intacct. So the beauty is, because it's a cloud-based solution, when I log in, I will log in to my instance of Sage Intacct. Everyone in those locations will do the same thing. And then based on my security and permissions, it will then display to me what access I have. So I'm sitting in Aiken, I'm a super user, and I can look at transactions across all of those locations. Conversely, let's just say that Sherry's sitting in Atlanta and she only enters transactions for Atlanta. So when she logs in, she's not going to have a choice. It's going to immediately put her into the location and based on the permissioning of where she's going to enter her transactions. Now, she could also have access to Sandy Springs. So it's not limited to just a one-to-one relationship or a one-to-many. It could, you can mix and match that, but it's all geared around that permissioning. And that's the beauty. It's flexible. It allows you to set up users with the right permissioning and the right security. And that's also based on the type of user that they are. So long answer to a quick question, you have that flexibility and you absolutely can all be using that same instance of Sage Intacct with the security in place. If that did not answer the question fully, whomever answered that, if you will just tag Sherry back with that, and then at the end we'll take a little bit more time to answer that or let you ask it in a different way.
Here's that answered the question.
Okay,
So,
perfect. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, probably gave you a little bit extra there, but that's okay. All right, so Sherry, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I think probably you need to stop sharing before I try to do that. And let me just have one of you verify that you can see my screen, and you should be looking at a role-based dashboard.
I can see that, yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so there is a lot of information on this screen, and if this is your first time to see Sage Intacct, you might say, oh my gosh, this looks like this could be complicated. It's not. I'm going to cover a few of the high points for you so you know a little bit about what you're looking at. First of all, I logged in as Emma, and Emma is the controller in this company. And Emma is what I would refer to as a super user. She has access to do pretty much anything. I've given her that permissioning where she can go into the different applications. And I'm also keeping books, if you will, for multiple companies or entities. So when I look at this drop down, it tells me the companies or entities that I am managing in this one instance of Sage Intacct. I also have logged in as another user. I'm going to show you the difference here. Emma's the one that's a super user. I've also logged in as Nikki. Excuse me, Nikki is the vice president of procurement. However, Nikki cannot do everything that Emma can. She has limitations, and her first limitation that you see is that she can only transact in Entity 100. So when she opens this up, she doesn't have that list to choose what entity she wants to transact in. So that's the first difference that you see here. You might think of that as my example of Sherry and I. Sherry can get into Atlanta, but she cannot transact in any of those other entities that I've set up. So let's come back to Emma. A couple of other things that I think is important for you to note is how easy it is to navigate. We have 5 different ways to navigate. So depending on your comfort level and maybe how new you are to the solution, you're going to choose the one that makes the most sense for you. However, let me point them out to you really quick. Here's the first one. It's menu driven, which is probably the easiest and most straightforward. There's 2 menus for each application. So you can just click on whatever selection you want from the menu. You also have what's called an overview map, and the overview map is a map that shows you all of the different icons within that application and gives you a roadmap of a best practice. So in this top swim lane, it's always your master files and things that you need to do in setup. And in the middle swim lane are your day-to-day activities, your task. And then the third swim lane has your reports. You click on an icon, it takes you right to that place in the software. So that's number 2. Number 3 is to create a bookmarked menu. So how often do you go to the same place? So once you get acclimated, you'll say, well, these are the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. How can I get to them quicker? Rather than menu traveling, you can bookmark a page and it'll create this little personal menu for you. I number mine. So I just put them in the number or the order in which I typically do them. I can change the description. I can drag and drop and move things around if I need to. So this is that personal menu. It's a bookmarking system. The fourth way is to create a favorites menu, and the favorites menu is anything that's one of your favorites. You put a gold star beside it. And when you put a gold star beside it, it adds it to this favorite menu over here on the left-hand side. And then the last way is through what we call our dashboarding and through our custom navigation. So I'm going to come back to that controller dashboard. And this section right here is custom navigation. So if I am a seasoned user, I'm probably going to use this custom navigation. And the reason is because when I log in, I can set my preferences just like I did for Emma. When she logged in, it dropped her right into the controller dashboard. So it knows where you want to start. It drops me here, and then I can use that as my launch pad to go wherever I want to go. So I can immediately say, I want to go to subscriptions, and it's going to take me right into subscriptions. So this is the quickest way that you can navigate and really put everything in one place is by building out this custom navigation. You can call these hyperlinks, name them, whatever you choose to. So if you don't want to call it subscriptions, you want to call it how to register an application, you can have that as your description here. So 5 different ways for you to navigate. One other piece I'm going to show you is help and support. So while you're in product, you can get help on a specific page. So if I'm in the middle of something and I don't remember how to do it, or I need to find out what that field really means and what's required, I can click on help on this page. If I want to go get some education, I can go to Sage University from here. And if I just want to go to the Help Center, and this is my favorite because the Help Center not only lets you search by keyword, but there's a video library here. There's a link to our release notes, training, support. And then all of these tabs up here are just full of hyperlinks to pieces of information that you may want to use on a frequent basis. Or let's just say that you're brand new and you want to look at what is accounts payable? How does it work? Or you want to look at how you set it up, or you want to get some education on it. Maybe you want to know something more about AP automation. This area up here behind these tabs, I think is one of the most attractive things in help. It's kind of some hidden gems, you might say. All right, so let's get cooking here. We've got about 15 minutes or so. So let's talk a little bit about some of those foundational things and the dashboards and the configurable business processes. Again, I've landed on this dashboard. It is the controller dashboard. I'm going to put on my controller hat. And when I open this screen up, here's the takeaway. I am managing 4 entities, 4 companies. When I open up this screen, this is a consolidated view. This $53,000 here is across all of those entities. But as a controller, I may not want to look at those in a consolidated mode. Maybe I just want to look at one of those. So I'm going to take a dashboard filter and filter this down to entity 100. And you'll notice the dashboard represents itself, and now I have $30,000 instead of $53,000. And that's because I'm only looking at entity 100. Now, these 3 boxes here, departments, locations, and items, they have drop downs. You can utilize those individually, or you can utilize them together in tandem. They're dimensions. They're part of that 12 dimensions that I talked about. If I want to go back to that consolidated view, all I have to do is just bring myself back and apply that dimension. So this $53,000, I'm interested in knowing a little bit more about it. Where's it coming from? This is general and administrative expenses. Looks like I'm doing okay. I've got that visual indicator and I'm comparing it to a budget. But if I want to know the details behind that, I can drill into that. It's showing me my master budget against my actual, and I can see in office supplies, I've already blown it. So let's go look at that $7,600. Let's see where it's coming from. So here I'm in the ledger. I see all the detail. I see detailed transactions from neighborhood printing. These are AP bills that have come through. I've posted them into the AP journal. And if I have a question about an individual transaction, I can drill into that. So here's where the fun begins. Lots of information here. I'm going to eliminate your filing cabinets pretty much because everything you need to know about this invoice, this AP invoice, is going to be right here on this screen. So I know all the information about how much it is, whether or not it's been paid, and I can drill into the check that paid it. I can have an attachment here that has a picture or a document attached. I can look at how this was coded. It was coded to office supplies and it was tagged to a department and a location. So I have all that information here. If I am the accounting person, I may want to know something about the posting details. So here, if I click on posting details, I can see that it was posted in a journal, and here's a drill back to that journal. So I can go right to that journal. I can see the debits and credits and how that was posted into the ledger. And then I can also click on the history tab. And in this case, this is an AP bill that went through an approval process. So now in this history, not only do I have all of the dates and the people that touch this document, I have the AP history of the approval. So now I see who approved it and when they approved it. So I have all this detail here. I don't have to call anybody. I don't have to dig in the filing cabinet. Now, that is true of any of those dollar amounts that we saw on the dashboard. Before I go back to that dashboard, let me just remind you, you can take this information, you can email it. So send it to someone, you can export it to Excel, or you could print it. You're going to see those buttons on lots of screens that I cover today. So each one of these boxes is called a performance card, and they're going to give me that quick business insight. Now, if I want to know a little bit more, as the controller, I want to look at my financial statements, my profit and loss, my balance sheet. So let's take a look at a profit and loss report here. This is one that's pretty standard, and it's giving me the ability to set up some default filtering. So from department down to warehouse, those are all dimensions. I can filter by those dimensions. I can also filter by a date. And once I set that filter, it's then going to execute this report. And again, I'm going to design this report with the columns and the rows. I'm going to design it the way I want it to look, and I'm going to offer you up 30 pre-built financial reports when you implement. So you'll have some to start out with. You won't start out with a blank slate. Again, anything that you see in blue today is drillable. So I'm just drilling in. I'm now on the revenue side. Same thing that we did on the expense side. I'm going to drill into an invoice. This is a customer invoice this time. So now I can see the invoice. It's had $11,000 paid. I can go in and drill to those payments. I've got the attachment. I've also got where it was coded. So I've got it to that revenue account. But I want to know a little bit more. So let's go drill another level into that invoice, which now is going to show me the detail of what I sold to them. I sold them this security system. I shipped it out of this warehouse and location, department, the quantities, and the pricing. In addition to that, I've got those same kind of tabs here. I've got the posting details, a little bit more information here. I've got my receivables, inventory, cost of goods sold, and revenue accounts. I can drill back to that journal. The history tab, instead of giving me the approval, it's going to give me the story of the transaction flow. So I can see this started out as a sales order, went through shipping, through fulfillment, and then I invoiced the customer. I can drill into any one of these documents. I can email it, print it. I can also see that I've created an audit trail, user date and time stamped. So all of this information behind the history, and then I said that there were a couple of payments that were made. So I've got $11,000 here in cash receipts, and this is going to give me all the detail of that payment, what bank I deposited it into, when it came in, and so forth. So now, again, I've pretty much eliminated the need to dig in a filing cabinet or call someone, because I got to all this information directly from the profit and loss, directly from the dashboard. Now, there's one other thing that I want to show you on this dashboard, and that is Sage Intacct Collaborate. Collaborate is the social media layer of Sage Intacct. This is where you can communicate with other Sage Intacct users. So let's say that Sherry and I was her manager and she was doing some AP bills, and I saw this AP bill when I was auditing it. It had been entered and posted, and I had a question about it. So this conversation is between Emma and Nikki. Same concept here. I can post that question to Nikki, and Nikki can respond back to me. The beauty of this is it's all attached or tagged to a specific transaction. So now when I go into this, it's going to take me to that bill, and I'm going to see a picture over here, and I'm going to be able to look at this bill and see all the conversations about it. And I'm going to be able to respond back in this dialog box with another question or comment to a person or a group of people, and then click share. It's going to notify me up here in my collaboration feed that I have a message. It's also going to post that over on my collaboration feed on the dashboard. So this is a great tool. Auditors love it. So that's the dashboarding, the quick business insight. Now let's take a look at a few things in the foundation. So one of the things that I talked about was user permissions and security. So here what you see is the ability to set up your users and then to set their permissioning. And when you set their permissioning, you'll be able to see what they can access and what activities and tasks they can access within a particular application. So this is very granular. It's much more granular than what you would see in QuickBooks. So you'll set this up every time you have a user. Anything needs to change on their permissioning, you'll do that here from the company area. In addition to that, I talked about entities or companies. So very easy to set up a new company. Takes about less than a minute. Click on add and give me a few pieces of information. And then from that, you'll also be able to see the inter-entity relationship. So if you're doing inter-entity, inter-company transactions, we're going to use this mapping screen. And that means we're going to automatically create the due tos and the due froms journal entry for you automatically. So if you pay on behalf of another entity, so if I pay Atlanta's bills for them, they're going to owe me money, and I'm going to create that due to due from relationship from this screen here. You don't have to create that manual journal entry any longer. The other piece that you might want to know a little bit about that I'll touch on quickly is importing data. So we have pre-built some templates so that getting that data in is not difficult, either converting that data and moving it in, or just some recurring data that you want to push into the system. We also have the ability in that company area to set up other things like, different roles. And this is where you would subscribe to your different applications. In the all area, we have something called checklist, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute when we talk about month end. So this is an area that you don't go into all the time, but it's an area that's important to you. The general ledger, we talked about having that modern chart of accounts. This is my chart. You can see that all I have is that natural account number. I don't have that segmented chart. What I also have the ability to do is set up statistical accounts. So when I want to track operational information, I'll set up a statistical account, and then I will take that statistical account and create a statistical journal entry. And the difference here is instead of these transactions being debits and credits, these transactions will be increases or decreases. And posting these journal entries then allows you to create that quick business insight that says perhaps you want to look at revenue per head count or revenue per salesperson. So you have the ability to combine financial with operational data and get a different way of tracking your business. I'm going to speed up my process a little bit. I realize I'm running a little bit behind, but I want to go ahead and share a business process with you. So let's take a look at that process first. And we're going to use the procure to pay process. And this is our purchasing roadmap, our overview map. I'm going to start by entering a requisition. I'm going to submit that for approval. Once it's approved, I'm going to convert it to a purchase order. I'm going to go through a receiving step. And then a few days later, my accounting team is going to get the vendor invoice. So to start this, I'm going to pretend that I am in one of those other locations. I am, going to be that Nikki person. So let's come in and let's look at, there we go. Got Nikki. Okay. So let's come into purchasing. And what you'll notice is that Nikki doesn't have as much on her menu as what Emma does. And again, that's all because of permissioning. So when we come into purchasing, I've already entered a purchase requisition in draft mode because I'm always scrambling for time. So I did that ahead of time to save a few minutes. So this is in draft mode. So I entered it, I saved it in draft mode. This is to neighborhood printers. It's for some brochures, and I've tagged that to a couple of our dimensions here. I'm ordering 100 of them at $1 a piece. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this. And submitting it is going to kick off the workflow. So the workflow has now kicked off and it's sent a message. And in this case, Nikki reports to Emma, so it's the manager-employee type of relationship. And what I'm going to do is set up a dashboard with all of my workflow approval on it. So I went to that dashboard. I'm now in that workflow approval. And I have this requisition here that I want to get approved. So if I was Emma, I'd want to look at it. So I'm going to look at this. I'm going to see exactly what it is that Nikki wants. That all looks good to me. I'm going to go to the history tab. I'm going to look to see who else needs to approve this besides me. And I see that it's only me. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to approve this. Now, when I approve this, Nikki's going to get notification that her transaction was in fact approved. And now it's going to flow through to the purchasing team. And the purchasing team is going to come in to that requisition and they're going to move it along in the process. So they're going to convert the requisition to a purchase order. They're going to print it, send it out to neighborhood, and neighborhood is then going to print those brochures and send those back to us. When we get them back, we're going to do a receiving of those brochures, making sure that we received in 100, and we're going to post that. And then a few days later, our accounting team is going to get the invoice and they're going to make sure that we got billed correctly. So now we want to make sure that we got an invoice for $100. We're going to put in a document number and we're going to post it. And at this point, we've gone from requisition through approval to PO to receiving to vendor invoice. And if we look, you and I created a history, and that history is right here. So again, each step in the transaction has been recorded. We've got the full audit trail. We can drill in to any of these steps in the process, eliminating having to dig in the filing cabinets. And then when we're through the payment cycle, we'll be able to see the payment details here on this screen as well. So I know we are short on time. I'm going to stop so that we have some time for questions. I would tell you that what you saw today was just scratching the surface. That was a business process flow that showed you the automation, no re-entering of data. It showed you that approval process. And if that's not your process, you have the ability to change what that process looks like. So don't feel that you are in concrete. You're not in concrete. You're basically, what I say is you're in Jello. So Sherry, I'm going to stop sharing and let you take it back so that we can finish up and maybe answer a few questions that our audience has. Anything from the chat?
Yes, actually there is. Are you able to download on desktop and use while not on the cloud? So I can answer that one.
Okay.
So Sage Intacct is designed to be a fully cloud-based platform to ensure users always have access to the most up-to-date features, security, and real-time collaboration capabilities. So it doesn't require downloading to a desktop, eliminating concerns about version control or local storage limitations. However, you can securely access Sage Intacct from anywhere with an internet connection. So if you do need offline functionality, you can download data through the export features, allowing you to work with the key information offline when needed. I hope that answers your question. Okay, Sherry,
Okay.
are there any other questions?
Yes, I have one more. This is about entities. How many entities can you manage in Sage Intacct? And how long does it take to set up a new one?
So
Oh, that's a
yeah,
oh,
unlimited, Joseph. So yeah, go ahead. Didn't mean to step on you.
no, that's okay. I was just going to say the same thing. It's unlimited, and setting up an entity it takes less than 1 minute.
Yes.
There's also, I believe you showed this in your presentation too. One of the most important pieces is the automation of inter-entity transactions.
Hmm.
So based on your configuration setup, Intact can create the journal entries automatically for the inter-entity transactions, the do to, do from, and provide that information to you.
The other thing I would say that I've heard from customers, maybe you have too, Joseph, that when you have that inter-entity reconciliation, sometimes that is a real pain at the end of the month to try to figure out, who's on first and who's on third. Because of that inter-entity relationship here, you have a report that's very easy for you to pull the do tos and the do froms, and then you have drill down from that report so you can see the detail behind it. So reconciliation becomes very easy because of the way that we have structured that whole process.
Definitely. Excellent. All right, I think that's all the questions that we have. So, everyone that's on the call today, I will be reaching out, but if you have questions in the meantime, please feel free to book a meeting with me. The QR code will take you to my Calendly link, and that'll allow you to pick a time for a 30-minute meeting with me, and we can talk about what your needs are. And my contact information is there. The top number is the office number, the second number is my cell phone number. You can reach out to me at any time, and I usually get back to people via email or um, phone very quickly. If I'm in a meeting, I'll get back right afterwards. So I really appreciate everyone's time today, and you will be receiving a recording of this webinar. Sherry, any other housekeeping things that you want to say?
I don't think so. Thank you, everyone. I think we covered it all, and we do appreciate everyone attending. Thank you, Linda and Joe, for your presentations.
You're so welcome. Thank you. And thank you for your continued support of Sage Intacct. We appreciate you. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone. We appreciate your
Bye.
time.